Welcome to the Make Space for Growth podcast. My name is Sara Vicente Barreto and I'm your host. I'm a corporate strategist, problem solver, social entrepreneur, writer, mom of two, and passionate for growth. At home, in business, or in my community. This is season 1 of the Make Space for Growth podcast, Finding Growth in a Crisis. In this season, I have asked amazing women leaders around the world to join me in a fireside chat about how they have dealt with lockdown and the COVID-19 crisis. We spend some time learning about their businesses and inevitably talk about how they have coped or not with it, both in business and at home. Quarantine, lockdown, shelter in place, or whatever it may have been called in your country. For me, this has been an inspiring time. I find crisis can create excellent opportunities for cleansing, decluttering, and finding new avenues. At home and in our business, crisis can make space for growth. Join me for this journey to find out how, because it is time for hope and light. This is episode 8 of the Make Space for Growth podcast. If you're new to the podcast, welcome. I hope you enjoy our conversation today. And if you're a regular, make sure you hit the subscribe button and do drop us a review. I would be ever so grateful. I have taken Make Space for Growth to Milan, London, Lisbon, Berlin, San Francisco, and Singapore. I am back to the States with Meredith Oppenheim. Meredith has been working with older people for over 30 years. She earned the US Congressional Award for her commitment to improving the quality and length of life of older people. Meredith has parlayed her passion and compassion into her profession, and since graduating from Harvard Business School in 2001, worked in the senior housing industry. Today, we are here to talk about Vitality Society, the business she launched in January 2020. Vitality Society is an online platform to keep people 60 and better at their best, applying a new paradigm on aging on the back of nearly 2 years of primary research. After what people 60 and better have been through in the last 6 months, what better business to talk about today than one that pays the most attention to them? Meredith has had an incredible path this year. When she launched Vitality Society in January, little did she know how much need there would be for her platform. I was psyched to get to know more about her business and the potential this can have in the best age of 60. With parents in the age group, I am certainly paying attention. In fact, I let you into a little secret. I was so impressed with the concept that I had my mom join the platform. Yes, you heard me well. Well, I couldn't do it as I'm not 60 and better. Let's dive into it. Right, Meredith, welcome to the Make Space for Growth podcast, and thank you for accepting my invitation.
Thank you for having me.
Meredith, before we go talk business, may I ask you, what was your favorite thing to do as a child, and what did you want to be when you grew up?
When I was young, I loved to bake. My father loved to eat sweets, and I loved to make them. And what I wanted to be when I grew up, it's interesting. I didn't really know. At one point, I felt something in business for sure. My father was an entrepreneur, and I saw how much he enjoyed doing the type of work he was doing. So I thought starting my own company, because when I was younger, in addition to baking, I also had a lot of businesses selling things I baked, selling things I made. And so I really enjoyed being in business and selling, and it was much easier to do when your parents were paying for your costs of your goods that you were selling. But now that inspired my entrepreneurial work now.
Did you have a lemonade stand?
Oh, no. But every time I see them, I support the girls that are behind it in the neighborhoods where I've lived and have spent my summers. It's always girls behind there. And I'm always the biggest backer and believer. I also helped my daughter when she was 8. We set up one in the city, which was quite good. I have to tell you, these city kids have it made. There's so much traffic. I never saw that much traffic in all my years at any consumer of lemonade. So that wasn't my thing, but I support the girls that do that.
Yeah, no, we had my daughter ask for that, I think 2 years ago in the middle of winter in London. And I explained, babe, lemonade in winter might not go that well. And then when I explained that, she'd have to buy the lemons, she was like, but could mommy maybe buy the lemons for me? I'm like, no, it's a business, right?
It is a business. It is a business. When we did it with my daughter, I kept the receipt And I showed them that for the supplies, we spent like $30. So I asked them, how much do we need to sell to break even? And they figured it out, $30. So I said, do you think we should sell for $1 a cup or $2 a cup?
They went for
we had this nice dialogue.
Right, Meredith. So I've given a bit of an intro about what you do, but could you please give us your view of what's your background and how did you end up creating this business?
Sure. So I have spent 30 years of my life dedicated to the well-being of older people. I wanted my grandparents to live forever. I was so close with them. I loved being with them. And remarkably, I am now living in my childhood home where 30 years ago I began this work, and my daughter now gets to live with my parents. And I have to tell you, I would have done anything to have my grandma and grandpa live with me every day. So it's quite a treat for her and a blessing for us, because as a startup entrepreneur, you really need a lot of help because it is a 7-day job and no limit to the number of hours you can work in a day. I started the platform after spending 2 decades in the industry of senior housing after graduating the Harvard Business School. And I realized as an industry, we were providing such a great service and experience. But what was interesting is so few older people wanted to leave their homes. Definitively, they wanted to remain well, they wanted to remain independent, and they wanted to remain at home. So what I decided to do was to look at specifically what we were doing well with service and experience, unbundle that from a physical environment, and offer that in a format online that people could plug into, get the community, which is aligned with longevity, and get content by top tier coaches that we would curate in the area of fitness, wellness, and enrichment. So we, by doing the fitness, add years to people's lives, but by doing the engagement, where they come together as a community and share laughter and experiences, they add life to their years. And so we really focus on delivering on both.
And Meredith, you set up the business on 8 principles, and people can Google them. But I'm curious about, for you, which one do you feel drives people more to the platform?
It's a great question. So one of the first principles, they're each 2-letter words. And the idea is to keep it super simple so they're easy to remember. So the first one is be. And I do think that is truly what motivates people. That's why we start there. We want people to be the best versions of themselves. So to have positivity, purpose, pleasure in their lives. We want to make sure that if people feel that they have something that they're curious about, something they wanted to engage in, people that they wanted to meet, here's their chance. We say that we help them become the best versions of themselves by tapping into their vitality, their creativity, and their curiosity. And so B is really the one that where we start and really is pervasive through all that we do.
Thank you. I'm going to leave the other ones for people to be curious and go and visit your website.
Sure.
Now, can you explain a bit more? You said it was an online platform, but what do people get there? I know you have a free and a paid membership. Can you maybe just explain a little bit to the audience? What do your members get when they get there?
Sure. So Vitality Society, vitality-society.com, is an online platform. Members can join for free. We offer complimentary events all the time. In fact, whenever we introduce a new class or a new coach to the roster, we always make that free. We also have quite a bit of affinity style programming that's for free. For example, once a month, the last Sunday of every month in the evening, we have a solo agers club led by the foremost expert on the subject. And the idea is that this is a subset of the community that we have, and we want to honor and recognize that there is something distinctively different about either being alone or feeling alone in the aging process, and we want to give people the resources of an expert, but also the perspective of their peers. So we do that. On the pay side, we offer our members unlimited live and recorded content. And those are 16 fitness, wellness, and enrichment classes. So we do cardio as an example as one. Our enrichment program is all the arts and music. We do mindfulness like yoga, tai chi, meditation. We do rehabilitation as one of our big programs. So we do physical therapy, barefoot therapy, stretching, and then we have a whole strengthening program. So the idea is that members can come in, they pay $29.99 a month for unlimited live programming. And during that time, live on Zoom, they interact with the coaches, they get to know the members, they come a few minutes early, they stay a few minutes late, and it really is a different type of experience than just listening to content online. The other piece of this is we do special events programming as well all the time. So we're going to be introducing a mental health and wellness program. We're going to be introducing a whole beauty program. So the idea is that our paying members get the live content, and we just also introduced our recorded content. So now members get the recorded library for free. So when you pay $29.99 a month, the unlimited content that's recorded as well as live.
It's interesting you talk about all these classes. I was super curious about it, but I'm not 60 and better, right? So I got my mom to join the platform. She hasn't done a class yet, but she's started getting the emails, and I think she was excited about the 15 minutes coaching session. So we'll see where that goes. I'll let you know when she gives me. She's very busy all the time, so I feel like maybe she's not quite at the age of using it every day. But I was very curious to know more about it. I was texting her before, like, come on, can you tell me more about it?
Well, I will say this is an interesting question, Sarah, because we have members who take one class a week religiously. They come for a specific class and they do that class. And then we have members on the opposite extreme who take every class every week. We have many of those members as well. And we have everything in between. I like to say that some members come for a coach, a class, and they stay for everything else. And it's truly, people do this on their own terms. This is a very busy generation of people that have lots of interests and lots of opportunities, and they want to take advantage of it. We're just one. And for a lot of people, knowing that we have something 2 to 3 times a day, and they could reliably connect to a community and commit to programming that helps them remain vital, it's very promising and encouraging. Not for everybody, and it's not for everybody every day, but we have a little something for many people, and we're very proud to say that. Our average members, our paying members, attend 5 classes a week.
Wow.
Which is about 5 times, if you think about a gym comparable, it's about 5 times what the average gym goer of this generation might do. So that really speaks to what I think the power of Zoom. People are able to connect and commit on their own terms. Come a minute late, leave 5 minutes early, experiment with this class, go to another. Nobody's judging, nobody's evaluating, nobody can impossibly even see you because you can turn off your camera and your microphone and not be seen or heard. And that is very empowering.
So you got us started talking about your members. Can you give us a bit more of an insight into the demographics, maybe the regions where you're seeing more clusters?
Sure. So we are about 95% US right now, and we have 1 coach in Europe. So we hope, with your help as well, to grow our European presence in other countries as well, and continents, of course. So I think our members are people who enjoy connecting. They like to have a lot of fun. We laugh a lot, and the coaches are very personable, and the people are very funny, and the members are delightful and very warm and welcoming. So I believe that our members are, by and large, very well educated, have had careers either in not-for-profits or in industry, for-profits, have a lot of desire to be active and some desire to be activists, but we really focus on giving people a place and a time to retreat, to treat themselves well. I'm often asked, in your programming that you do for intergenerational, let's say like bring your grandchild, like in essence, our programming does the best when it's for the member and about the member. People are very engaged with their families and their grandkids, but our platform is a place that they can escape and enjoy on their own terms, for themselves. One of our coaches calls us an oasis in chaos, and And one of our members most beautifully recently told me, Meredith, this has been a lifeline for me. I get emails all the time, people saying I was in rural Pennsylvania, I felt so disconnected, or I was living in Florida with one person, but I don't know anybody else here and I couldn't get home. Or I decided not to go. I decided to stay home, but I can't go out. And people have found community and I'd say sanity in a very insane time.
So Meredith, you got us started talking about, what really happened here in the last 6 months in more detail. And that is something we always talk about in the podcast. COVID-19 is still not let go. We've just spent a good part of the podcast prep time in talking about the schools and the masks and all that. But in fact, who knows if it's warming up or cooling down. But let's first talk about the business and how that changed both your perspective and your members' perspective. And then maybe we can talk a bit about your personal life as well. As you mentioned already, you had some changes.
So I was just going to say, for the business, there was always a great need to do what we do. But in the age of COVID, the time was never more urgent or the need greater to do it yesterday.
Yeah.
Right? We always knew that people want to remain home. They want to remain independent. They want to remain well. But there wasn't a full solution and service to facilitate and enable that for someone. That created a lot of urgency for us to do what we were planning on doing with much greater speed than even we anticipated.
You told me you launched in January with no doubt great need, as you say. People did want to stay home and not go anywhere else. And then suddenly this whole COVID situation happened, and now it was not about wanting, people had to stay home. So can you talk about what happened in the business when lockdown kicked in and how that affected maybe the plans that you have in the terms of areas you were focusing on?
Right. So it was interesting. I mean, my husband, when I launched the platform, said to me, but how are you going to get people there? And how are you going to get them to stay there? And I knew in the early part of the winter, before COVID, before I even know what COVID was, we tested content. We did a product market fit analysis. I had already done, after 20 years in the industry of senior housing, I had already done about 18 months of research, an online survey with people 60 to 80. I did focus groups with people 60 to 80. But interestingly enough, until you try something, you don't actually know what people will want or what they'll pay for. So what we did was, in the early part of the winter, we tested content to say, where and how are people interested in engaging with us? It was absolutely crystal clear to me that fitness was something that was universally interesting. At the time, though, there were a lot of options for people, right? They could go to the gym, they could walk outside, they could have stationary equipment in their house. There were a lot of options. So we had to work much harder and smarter to figure out where we fit in. So by the time COVID hit, I knew fitness was very valuable. I also explored the concept of retirement. So the idea of retirement being a pivotal point in time where people were going to need or want to re-engage with others and redefine their lives. So I thought that pegging our platform to that life-changing event would be interesting. However, when we did that content in January, February, there wasn't that much interest. This is not a generation necessarily that's retiring at all, right? They're reinventing themselves. They're re-engaging on new terms and new experiences. So I realized that wasn't necessarily important and critical to what we were going to offer. So we went long and hard in fitness. We made everything for free from mid-March, really, when I upped the game and did all of these classes. We're now up to 16, but we gradually got there. Started at 1, then we went to 5, then went to 10, and now we're at 16 a week. And then we layered on other classes over time. So we started with fitness, and in mid-May, we started to charge. Because when I saw that we were offering so many classes each week, and the cost as a startup to underwrite that myself personally, I felt like we're going to continue to grow and offer the quality and quantity of programming that we're doing. Yeah. I needed to charge. And so we started charging in the middle of May. And we still have free, as I had said, but pay really allows us to sustain the business, or work towards sustaining the business with real revenues.
Yeah. And Meredith, one of the things we've been hearing, I think, in most episodes in the podcast is how customers were closer than ever, right? Because they didn't even have to leave the house to be next to you, especially in the case you were even an online platform. This happened for the brands on the street, but for you, this was the obvious way to go. I imagine you probably felt quite a bit of that, and you probably saw, a much bigger growth than you expected. Can you maybe talk a bit about how you saw customers connect to you in a different way from March and through the kind of lockdown or shelter-in-place period? And how do you feel like that's affected your relationship with your members?
Sure. So we started zero. January 6th, when I flipped the switch that we are going to be public and send out my first email, we were at zero. We hit 1,000 members at the end of May. So that was really exciting because we were doing it for free. And so there was a lot of growth, a lot of momentum in membership because it was free. We have strived to be a very reliable source of content and a very comforting community of people at this vital time for so many. And so the relationships we've built with our members has been possible because, as you said, we were always going to be an online platform, and our entire experience is as an online platform. So we would see our members every day, 2 to 3 times a day. So they all know me, they know our concierge, and we get to know each other. We had a member, interestingly enough, we still have her, she's fantastic. She attended every single class that we offered. And one day I didn't see her. So I emailed our concierge and I said, have you heard from this member? And she's like, no. I said, something must be wrong. So I emailed her, and within 5 minutes, I got a message back saying I had an AFib attack last night at 4:00 in the morning. I'm in the hospital, but I'm okay. And I got the green light to continue the classes with Vitality Society this evening. I said, a green light to continue Vitality Society classes this evening? I really thought she was kidding. And the days thereafter, does the class in the hospital bed. And she is a social psychologist by training and practice. And she just underscored that the importance of her prioritizing her well-being was so valuable, and people asking her how she felt and how she was doing. And then when she returned home and engaged back with us, that's very inspiring, and it helped in her healing process. So we form beautiful relationships with our members. Always people will say, oh, I'm in California, the air quality now is not great, so they connect with other people. And then like we had an earthquake here in New Jersey last night, believe it or not, it was so crazy. So there's no shortage of things to talk about. And since people are from all over the country, there's a lot to share. So we pride ourselves in forming a beautiful relationship. I think that's part of what people really like. Last week was my birthday. Everybody sang to me. I got emails and posted on the platform. It's just beautiful. It's a very nice community, and we do that for other people as well. In fact, we're going to be offering a new program for birthdays. We're going to have birthday parties for our members to bring their friends, and then they could attend a class of their choice. The member could bring, if this is your favorite class, Nia Dance. At 5:00 on Monday, we'll do 4:30. We'll have you come together with your friends, and then 5:00 dance with them and show them your class that you enjoy. We are very much a community.
And Meredith, you went from 0 to 1,000. You had, you ramped up to the 16 classes, and you had the pressure that you knew you didn't want to let people down. How did you adjust the company swiftly to cope with this sort of demand? Did you even have the infrastructure to support this when you started?
So we built on a platform that's highly scalable. I'm very lucky. My tech advisor is my husband. So if I have to get stuck with anybody, he's a good one to get stuck with if you're building a technology platform for older people. So that our platform was very scalable. Our service model, I come from the senior housing industry, so I'm very familiar with at least what we strive for, a level of excellence in what we do, and the need to over-communicate a message and share it frequently and easily. So we set up systems and processes that a very small team could do a great deal of work. And so the systems and processes that I've set up because of my operations background allow us to do it in a very lean way for a very sizable number of people at a very high level of service. So I'm very proud to say that. We're a very small operation, but we do a lot of good work.
That's very impressive. Meredith, I know there are a lot of businesses struggling out there, but there are also quite a few entrepreneurs looking for optimism. And I think you've brought us quite a bit of optimism here today. Crises are tough, and we also know they can be a huge opportunity for cleansing, for change. And you're a clear example of where crisis actually brought about even more positive change in your business. The need was there, but this just accelerated the ability of people just wanting to join and, spend 5 days a week in your class. Going forward now, can you talk about new areas that you see in your business and maybe where you see opportunity that maybe you didn't think it would be there 6 months ago?
Sure. So I think the whole area of mental health is an area. We did our first program to test it to see if there was interest in a premium offering in the area of mental health. And it appears definitively and unanimously there absolutely is. So we're going to be putting that type of style of programming together where people could get together twice a month, or we even do it once a month, like our Solo Agers program. But I do believe that the sub communities and sub themes that are maybe less action oriented and more contemplation, reflection oriented, very valuable addition to what we can offer. I also think the whole area of beauty and wellness at the beginning, in the winter, people would say, oh, I haven't got my haircut for a month. Now people are saying, I haven't got my haircut in 6 months. Or, or people will say, like, I haven't bought new clothing. Now we're 3 seasons ahead, right? But they were winter, spring, summer, and now we're in fall. And who's shopping and where are they shopping is irrelevant in the scheme of things, right? Because our members really need to stay as close to home as they can, to stay as well as they want to remain. And so, going shopping for clothing during a pandemic and continuing isolation doesn't really seem necessary or valuable. But on the other hand, looking good and feeling good go hand in hand. So it's important that people feel that sense of pride in their appearance later in life. In senior housing, every one of the communities I worked with had a hair salon, and all the community residents would go to the hair salon once a week. And I think there's something to be said about keeping yourself looking as good as you can look, and certainly as you feel. So the whole area of beauty is something that we're looking into. I have a few relationships that we're exploring that are more partnership style, a range of beauty products and services and product companies, clothing and other, that might be more sponsors to our platform. So that's something that we're really excited about. So we can be a curator, not just of content and experiences, but also of products and services.
So those are, you've clearly opened, a few new fields when you think of what people need in a COVID world. What about in a non-COVID world when, it's hard to imagine right now what that looks like. But originally, when you envisaged this business, it was not envisaged for a COVID world. You probably even envisaged some things to be done offline and not everything online. What is the prospect there? What do you expect you can create out of this great community that you're building right now?
It's a wonderful question. So I know a few areas in particular our members are very excited about. Number one, they want to go on a vacation. They want to go somewhere together and do the type of programming and bonding that we do on the platform. So there's no question that we have to plan a retreat when we're able to get on a plane and see one another and meet one another beyond the rectangles that we have gotten to know one another. There's also a lot of interesting possibility of creating local chapters. So we have a lot of members that are in particular markets, geographically speaking, or find themselves in a different market than where they call their primary home. So they might have gone to Florida, for example, in January and never made their way back, right? Because they were scared to fly and driving wasn't appropriate. So doing kind of local chapters divided geographically is something that's also very interesting. And when we do that, then there's opportunities, if you will, for people to get to know each other locally and build those friendships. In our Solo Agers group, we had 2 women from Vancouver who participated. They were adjacent rectangles on the Zoom screen. And it turned out they lived in the same neighborhood. They hadn't met each other and they became fast friends, and now they garden and walk daily. And so, it is possible that you meet someone on Zoom from your neighborhood, but we're going to facilitate that to make it more fun. And then the other piece of this is, and it's quite exciting, now that we have a wonderful vibrancy to our community, is exploring, not now, but down the road, are we a great place to create a new style of residential housing, right? That's my professional background is senior housing. So I can't help but think at this stage of our 60 to 80-year-olds that we serve, everybody wants to remain home, but coming out of this crisis and quarantining, does the definition of home change, and could we be a catalyst and creator of that?
Yes, for sure. There's going to be a lot of food for thought when we when we want to come out of this. One final point on this crisis in your business. Knowing what you know today, would you give yourself different advice with the benefit of knowing this 6 months ago? What would you tell yourself?
It's interesting. I feel like we've done a lot well and we've done a lot right. I decided not to raise money for the business until we were much further along. Our costs have grown perhaps faster than I thought because our number of people we served and the content we were offering has grown faster than I anticipated. So maybe if I had a little bit more foresight 6 months ago, I might have, while I was building the platform, I might have started having some conversations and planting some seeds about where I could go back for capital. That being said, it doesn't mean that the people I might have spoken to back in January would have any interest in June or July or August or September. So I think that would have been maybe a little bit helpful. I think as an entrepreneur, you have to balance everything. You have to balance the product, the process, people, and the capital is critical. But on the other hand, I felt that we had enough of a contained cost structure for me to get started and validate our B2C offering, our business to consumer offering. And once we did that I would have enough traction to gain capital interest. So we're in that inflection point right now. Had I planted some seeds perhaps earlier in the winter, it would be an easier process. But everybody who's ever sold companies or raised money know there's nothing easy about it. I think just now is another level of complexity.
So Meredith, if you don't mind, let's get into your home a little bit. You're a high-performing entrepreneur, as you already said, working 7 days a week with no hours. Launched a business that has had lots of growth, but you're also a mom. Schools shut down in the middle of all this. Now they've kind of reopened. Can we talk a little bit about what happened in your home?
Sure. So we abruptly left. My daughter was in a show at the local YMCA. She was just finished the first of 9 shows that she had rehearsed for months, and they canceled the last 8 of them. And she looks at me and she's like, school's canceled, the show's canceled, now what are we going to do? And I looked at her, I said, go on Airbnb and find a place for us to live for at least a few weeks because we're leaving. And she's like, few weeks? I was like, few weeks. Find something that's available for a few weeks. Well, she did. That first day that she was home, she went on Airbnb. We picked the county close to my family where I grew up and my parents are, and she found a home. We lived there for 6 weeks. And so during that time, my daughter's school was trying to figure out what they were going to offer and how they were going to offer it. So it was a very confusing time for all of us, but I was running, very long, late hours on the computer, and my husband was doing the same for his work that he does. So my daughter, I signed her up for some online programs to supplement the school day while the 3 of us were quarantined in a house. And then once I felt that we were well enough to move along in the end of April, we moved to my parents' house where I grew up. So this to us, to live intergenerationally, has been fabulous because on the one hand, my mom is one of our members. She's very loyal. She gives me great feedback, positive and negative. So that's great. Also to have my parents' support because my dad eats lunch with my daughter every day during her school breaks. And my mom spends time with her after school because my husband and my workday doesn't end at 3 o'clock. So it's really nice to have 2 other adults. And now we have a little furry friend. So when my daughter's camp was canceled for the summer where she planned to be, she looked at me and my mother looked at me because now I had 2 generations of my family counting on me. What are we going to do now? Right? And so I said, you know what? I don't let you down, but I need more than 3 seconds since hearing camp that's canceled to figure this out, but we'll figure it out. And so I agreed to the puppy. We were very lucky that my brother and his family came here in an RV from Florida. They were supposed to stay here for a few days. They stayed here for a few weeks. So that was very nice. And my daughter befriended the local kids in the community in my parents' neighborhood. They're wonderful kids. And one of my very good friends still lives here and has children around her age. And I put her in week-long camps. So between the dog and these small camps and the neighborhood friends, all in all, thank God, we stayed well and it was a great summer. But there's no question now we're between New York and New Jersey. My daughter's in school only 2 days. But, we did it in the spring with no school in school. And we could do this now with 4 adults, a furry friend, and only 3 days home rather than 5. We have to be adaptable and flexible as a business. We have to be adaptable and flexible as a family. This is not necessarily the way anybody envisioned it, but it's the way it is. And as long as we have our health and each other, we're okay.
So you've given us a preview of what it was, when it locked down and out of school. Now we're entering this new world of a few days in school, a few days not. But you're pretty positive about it. What didn't go so well?
Oh my God. Let's see, what didn't go so well? Well, the first program I dropped my daughter off for the summer. It was like a week-long program. I get there and nobody's wearing a mask in the middle of June. And it was with the public parks department of my county, which is an incredible organization that runs beautiful, wonderful programming. I just didn't realize that they weren't wearing masks. It's a circus camp. So they were touching everything, big pieces of equipment, small pieces of equipment. I don't know who was cleaning what, how they were cleaning it. So that was alarming to me, right? Because my daughter was so excited to go and do an activity out of the house. She was already inside without the mask when I noticed, and it was too late. The other part of that experience was they took her temperature before she walked in, and her temperature was like 92. So I said to the gentleman, very nice man, I said, what was her temperature? Just because I was curious. He goes, oh, no, you have nothing to worry about. She's only a 92. And we only kids above 100 have to go home. I'm like, 92? Thermometer's not working. I mean, that's a very dangerous temperature for a human. I don't think the thermometer works. So I was so angered by that okay, so now she's in a facility. Nobody's wearing a mask and nobody is above 100 because the thermometer is 6 degrees off. So if a kid had over 100, he was registering 106, and nobody was going to be 106. It was crazy, but I wasn't signing up for it to be crazier. I just had to stay sane. That was my standard. Stay sane, stay safe.
So you're getting into my favorite topic. So working from home is not for everyone. How, in the middle of all this, how did you manage to stay productive?
Well, I have to say my parents and my husband have been incredible. I really am very blessed. My husband used to travel over 50% of the time for his work, and he hasn't had to take a trip like most people since March. So he's an incredible cook. He's an incredible partner, and he made dinner every single night. And so that took a lot of thinking and preparing and off my plate. That being said, I clean up every night. That's the thing. He cooks, I clean. And my mom and dad have really helped take care of my daughter on the hours that she's obviously not in a program or doesn't have school, or one of the neighborhood kids come over. They've always watched her in the pool, and they've pitched in. I'd drop her off in the morning places and they'd pick her up, because it was hard for me to spend 2 hours in a day going back and forth to an event or activity. So I think there's so much value to living intergenerationally. And now when I went home to my apartment and my daughter and I just went because it was for a day, I realized how intense it's been for my work, but how pleasant all my other responsibilities have been, because I have other people. When my husband would travel and it was just my daughter and me, I would do everything: childcare, cook, clean, work, and it was intense. So the intensity is different, but I feel like I am able to share these responsibilities with other adults that I can count on, and that's how I've done it.
So you got us started on sanity. Mental health is something that is very close to my heart. It's been a tough time for people's mental health,
right,
whether they were with family or living on their own, and I'm sure you've seen that as well in your members. Can you share any tips of how you've managed yourself, and maybe some tips that you've been sharing with your members and that have helped people through this time?
For our members of Vitality Society, it's really being a place that people could go to and embed in their routine. They know every day they have 2 to 3 options to do something good for themselves, physically and mentally, right? It's one part movement, but our whole enrichment program is tapping into that curiosity in this safe community. So people who might have wanted to be an artist are artistic. So I think art is very therapeutic. So we've done a lot of that. So we have an art class every Saturday. We did improvisational arts. We also have done photography arts. So I do think the idea of an artistic outlet for people's creativity has helped with their sanity. I do think there is an element of that. And we do it in a very pleasant, delightful, non-judgmental way. So if you're an artist, your work that you post on the platform and people comment on is lovely. and you're acknowledged for being as gifted as you are. But then people who have less talent or have less time to have developed their talent, are also recognized and rewarded for contributing, and people really are very supportive. So I think the sanity piece has come, no question about it, with the community and the creativity piece for sure. And I think people staying physically well and feeling stronger and better has helped with their mental health, because I think a lot of our members have seen this COVID period as an opportunity, not a crisis in some ways. So an opportunity to do something they've never done before. We have members that come and have neuropathy or other pain and aches in their bodies and come for the physical therapy and then stay for the other classes, because now they gain the strength and the stamina and the balance and the reassurance that they can actually try and do something else. So I think the idea of members tapping into their vitality in this very safe community has helped with people's sanity. So that's very much how we've supported people. We also build a lot of redundancy in our systems, going back to what I was saying with our operational approach. And by creating this redundancy in the system, it takes out a lot of the uncertainty. So if people need help with technology, if they need help with any kind of question that they have related to our programming, our service model supports them such that that isn't anxiety producing. We really mitigate all of that with the level of support and assistance we provide.
And if you had to pick one challenge, what would be the biggest challenge you had through these times?
There's just so many angles and options how to move forward. So I believe that we've done a very good job of validating our consumer product. And in order to be able to scale what we've created with speed, there's no question we have to form partnerships. So I really need, the challenge I face is which partnerships, what terms, how fast I can do that. Because if I wanted to go out and raise money, we have to be able to demonstrate that type of growth trajectory. And remember, we're young. We just started in January. Most companies, it takes years to make $1 in revenue because they don't charge anyone anything. And so for us, like I said, I decided to charge for our content, which would allow us to be more nimble financially, and I could sustain the business personally for longer. And so, it allows us, we're at a place where I'm able to do that with the quantity that we're offering. But in order to really scale faster, it is going to take those partnerships. And with those partnerships comes capital, and with capital comes greater growth. So it's a chicken and egg, right? You need the growth to get the money, and you need the money to get the growth. I just try to put one foot in front of the other, offer great product, great experience, and hope there's a lot of interest in partnerships. And it's just a matter of structuring and pursuing them. But I will just give a little anecdote. Before Harvard, in 1997 to 1999, I worked for Time Warner, and I was part of the launch team and teams that built their online platforms. It's hard to believe in 1997 how many years ago that was, but I was building Sports Illustrated's online content, and we had 15 million users, and I was responsible for the marketing and the e-commerce partnerships. And so it's kind of interesting that I've come full circle.
Yeah.
And I also think it's remarkable. I wrote my failure essay for the Harvard Business School on charging for content on the internet. And yet in the most difficult of times during a crisis, I decided to do just that. So exactly. that was quite something, where I decided to repeat what was a failure and try again in one of the more difficult times. But here we are today.
Meredith, we all had things we liked and things we didn't like about this lockdown. You described a few, but this is a podcast about growth. What new opportunities did you find with being stuck at home? And I put earmarks in stuck because it's been great for a lot of people, and you clearly talked about intergenerational living as a positive. Did you start new things as a family? What good things came out of this lockdown?
Well, it's been wonderful to spend time with my husband and my daughter together. We've done a lot of bike rides. My husband got my daughter and I new bikes because we were biking a lot. Beautiful around here to bike. So I thought that was really special to be able to just spend time in nature as a family of 3. And we were very much isolated and alone going through these trails and paths. So that was really fun for us as a family to be together. Also spending time with my parents, looking out for them. I was very worried about them before I moved in. They had to go grocery shopping. They had to go here, they had to go there. We take a lot of that burden off scheduling deliveries or going to the store. It's safer for us to go to the store in many ways than my parents. So I think that's been helpful to be helpful to them and them helpful to us. And I think, expanding our family with our furry little friend.
Meredith, let's end on a light note. I got a little surprise round for you. So just shoot the first question, the first answer that comes to your mind, and we'll give the audience a little of an insight into your mind. What was your favorite lockdown book?
I love From the Desk of Zoe Washington. It was so interesting because my daughter looked at me. We read at different times, but parents had to read the same books as their child. And she said to me, "What's a penitentiary?" A penitentiary? This is a book for a 4th grader. Like, penitentiary? And the whole book was about a Black girl whose father, also being Black, was incarcerated but falsely accused. It really shed an incredible light at a very timely point in history.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it was so perfectly timed for our times and allowed us to engage in conversation. It was really, I'd say that was the most notable book that I read.
What was your favorite lockdown sport?
I swam a lot. My parents have a pool and we swam a lot. My daughter and I would do laps and I would chase her. She would chase me. I would race. She would race. So that was kind of fun. I really liked.
And what was your favorite lockdown technology?
I think my laptop. I've been on it way too many hours, too many days.
And what was lockdown's greatest lesson for you?
The same lesson I learned when I was at Harvard. I saw my professor going into one of my first exams. He said, "Meredith, you're looking quite concerned." I said, "Oh my God, I know what's on the test, but I don't know everything that's on the test." And he looks at me and goes, "But at Harvard, we strive for excellence, not perfection." I was like, nobody ever said that to me. And I was 26 years old. And I said, I'm pretty sure had I been striving for excellence, I don't know that I would have been at that point in time at that school, but I loved the sound of that. And that inspired me at business school to just do the best I can. And I feel that way now. Like, I just feel like I'm doing the best I can. We don't always get everything right. We don't always do everything well as a family, individually, as a company, but we do the best we can.
And Meredith, if you had one word to describe lockdown, what would that be?
Stamina.
Meredith, thank you. Thank you so much for being here today and for sharing all this with us. It's been great to get to know you more and to get to know Vitality Society. And thank you for being at the Make Space for Growth podcast.
Oh, thank you for doing this. It's so important. I love the work.
I hope you enjoyed our conversation today. I loved finding out about how Meredith created this much needed business for people aged 60 and better, and suddenly found herself in the middle of a pandemic where her target client had no choice but to be isolated. Through Vitality Society, Meredith gave people a chance to strengthen their vitality, be connected, and bring to the surface their best selves. Meredith also turned this crisis into an opportunity by moving back home, and she does speak passionately about intergenerational living. What were your biggest takeaways? Before I go, let me remind you, this is the first season of the Make Space for Growth podcast. Please rate us and leave us a review on your favorite podcast app. You can read more at makespaceforgrowth.com. Please share your thoughts and questions on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. All links will be on the show notes. It has been a pleasure bringing this fireside chat to you today. I'm grateful you are there. I get to do this.